My conversation today on Behind the Act is with Gabe Nihirny. He's a drummer, an audio engineer, and a producer. And today we're talking about moving to Nashville from other states and our processes of finding our own artistic voice and what skills we're working on next. I'm Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act with Gabe Nihirny.
It's all about the people you meet and the opportunities that come up, you know? Like we just met at a video shoot randomly and we are hanging out for the second, third time. So yeah, you just never know who you're going to meet. And
with fumes of graffiti coming through the alley.
That was crazy. I was like, I mean, everyone has their opinion, but I was like, can you not deface the tunnel? Like,
I know.
I mean,
seriously.
Well, they didn't draw anything nice, at least.
That's fair. Yeah. They were, and it was not artful.
No, it was probably spiteful in some way. I don't know. Yeah.
How long have you been in Nashville?
Just over 3 years.
Okay.
So most of my childhood, I was in Missouri. I was doing similar things in Kansas City, playing drums. I was managing kind of not a mega church, but a larger church with a couple campuses. So I was in charge of tuning their PAs, making sure the stages worked. They had microphones set up, mixing services, stuff like that. And I had a good friend of mine that lived here, and we would call every so often, talk about gear, music, the industry, whatever was going on. And most times we'd end the conversation with him telling me, like, dude, everything you're doing in Kansas City, you could be doing at a bigger scale in Nashville. And you'd probably be getting paid more, you'd have more opportunities, and there'd probably just be more of your people here.
Right.
And that's been the case. Yeah.
Awesome.
So within like a 2-week period, like 2021, kind of in the middle of pandemic, all that nonsense. And I was like, this is just a step I'm going to take. I have this job, but I'm just going to put in my 2 weeks. And I was in a good position to just kind of leave everything in Kansas City and take a risk in Nashville. And so far it's been awesome. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
This is the best risk I've made so far.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I first knew of you as a drummer, but it makes sense that you have like extensive audio engineering background because of the studio work you've helped here.
Right.
And at Chase's and,
Yeah. And my dad does he's also a musician. He does audio full time in Kansas City.
Okay.
Mainly he does studio stuff. I'd say the majority of his is live audio, but so I grew up in the studio, around soundboards. Funny enough, even though I was doing it in Kansas City, I was thinking I'd be more of a musician in Nashville than audio, but it's been more audio than, I'd say it's a lot harder to find a good audio guy than a good drummer in Nashville.
That's so interesting.
Unfortunately, fortunately and unfortunately.
That's funny.
So
how long, what about the drum side? How long have you been doing that?
There's never been a point where I haven't played drums. Really, I mean, the joke is that I was born playing drums. My parents just knew when they were pregnant with me that I was going to be a drummer, and I was pots and pans, and that's the story. So,
what drives you the most musically?
Well, music's such an emotional experience, and it carries a lot of power in like a message it can hold inside of it, and a way it can make people feel, and it can be a whole experience. I just love being a part of an experience that will make someone's day, or even like driving around and this song makes my day, or this lifts my spirits, or it's carrying like a really good message. So
right,
in principle, but it's hard to, how do you explain, how you like listening to music? It's what's that saying? Like, how can you dance and explain architecture at the same time? It's just,
I've never heard that.
Yeah. I'm paraphrasing it poorly, but I think anyone that enjoys music, which I don't know anyone who doesn't, but yeah, hard to put into words at the same time.
What are you doing right now musically?
Musically, I've been focusing a lot on kind of honing my craft as far as capturing drums in my home studio, just getting more detailed with how to get the sound I want and learning to do different sounds, and also just staying up to date with all the different methods and ways to capture it and make it sound better. I'm wanting to get more into making my own samples, which is kind of that's not a surprise for a drummer to be doing. Right. That's definitely been a trend. So I'm a little late to that. but better late than never.
To be fair, I just bought 5 different packs from Good Drum stuff for this project.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, and it's not like I'm short on samples. It's just, that's another set of options.
Sure. Yeah, or you hear a sample of it somewhere and it sounds inspiring to you, or you just grab it, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, and this one, we were looking at something that works well with metal.
Sure.
And what they were using, the pack that they were using was on a different system and didn't sound how I wanted it to sound. So it's an option. It's not like it was bad. It's just, different options.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to venture more into that.
That's awesome.
That's what I'm doing right now.
I feel like every other week you're touring, right?
Right. Yeah. So I'll tour and do, recently I was doing monitors for a tour that was 28 shows within the span of a month and a half. So at that point, that takes up most of my energy.
Right.
It could be pretty exhausting doing that.
Yeah.
So I usually either have that on my calendar, or I keep my calendar flexible to be able to jump on a tour where it's needed.
Cool.
So I really enjoy doing that, and that'll wear me out, and then I'll have a little season of being home and just getting to diddle around with drums or something.
Right.
So,
and then the producing side, what's your goal with that?
Yeah, having a goal. I don't know if I have a great specific goal for producing, other than I just enjoy it like nothing else. It's one of those things where I can sit down and actually focus on it for 4 hours in a row and not really break a sweat.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not going to say I'm officially ADHD, medically diagnosed, but I have some tendencies.
Yeah.
And for me, if I can sit down and focus on something intensely for 4 hours, or even like 2 hours without wanting to go do something else, I'm like, okay, that's something that really drives me and keeps me locked into being productive, or whatever that means.
Yeah.
But there's not many things that are as satisfying to me as sitting down and writing a piece of music, or even an instrumental that I love listening to. So I'm like, wow, I made something that I like to listen to. But as far as goals, I would love to get into producing for artists. But I think I'm still in the stage of learning and kind of developing what makes my sound unique, just doing it over and over again.
Yeah. We were talking before this interview about having, split focus and lots of interests, and, and I resonate with that, obviously. And, but I've seen, at least what I've witnessed so far, is that what you go into on a deep level and care to do a good job with it too. But how do you curb the distractions that don't take you to somewhere that you want to go, or do you
what is define distraction? I guess, what is that? Like, just like a part of industry that you don't like, or
just like, okay, so we have talked about like roasting coffee, and I also like woodworking, and I like disc golf, and I like studio stuff, audio things and video things, and those are all technical, but it's I don't know, but in your case, you're like going into you now own a home, and you are working on or learning how to repair things. Is that fun, or I don't know?
No, I get what you mean. I think it comes down to practically, there's certain things that fiscally make sense for you to do it. Is fiscal the right word? Financially makes sense. Like, I don't want to pay someone to fix my door for $1 million when I could just take an afternoon and do it.
Yeah, that would be a really expensive door repair.
Right. Yeah. I'm not exaggerating at all. But I mean, that's been something that's usually running through my mind. It's like, on one hand, I don't want to be so consumed with music or burn myself out in that. And sometimes it's nice to have something that's completely unrelated, like coffee. Like roasting coffee, or like I just got a Chemex last week, and I'm learning how to do pour overs. Yeah. And I feel like I'm 15 years late to that trend. Like, I'm too late to make a latte art Instagram. Right. Like, what missed that train. Yeah. But it's one of those things that I'm starting to enjoy, have more interest in. And it's just completely unrelated to music, but it's also a good way to relate to people that do music as well. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I wish I wouldn't have spent so much time on this other thing. It's a balance that I'm still figuring out. Yeah, because there's sometimes where it's nice to hyper focus on one thing, but it's really easy to be sick of it.
Yeah, it's very easy to not pick a niche or find a place to go very intentionally when. Like it's actually I want to come. No, let's go right down that path. I think.
Sure. Yeah.
I have conversations often with some people that I feel like they always have really good ideas, but they don't stick with them at all.
Right.
So
yeah,
there's definitely I have this idea, I'm excited about it, and then the next thing, idea, next thing, idea, next thing. And they have like, that's a great idea, but like stick with it. But I'm also the guy that's like, with a podcast and doing audio or doing music and doing video and, like, I don't know, I have my own distractions, but I think what you said that is interesting to me, and I think I would love to go into more, is like the burnout side, or protecting yourself from it. And so giving value to the distractions, I think, is a healthy idea, like a good way to go about it, guilt-free or whatever,
Well, like you want to go live life and then make music about it, You don't want to just make music for the sake of, well, I'm not saying I don't want to box music in that way, but I've heard that from a few artists I admire. I think John Mayer said something like that. He's like one of my favorite people to talk about. I'm saying that backwards.
It's okay.
Listen to while they talk about music and how like it relates to their personal life. Just the way he explains how he writes music in response to life, other than the other way around. That could be just a personality thing. But
summarize what your takeaways are from his talks that motivate you and inspire you.
Yeah. What inspired me about the way he talked about it is he more let the music out instead of trying to make something happen. And I could be one of my favorite podcasts I've heard him on. He was with Rick Rubin, which Rick Rubin's all the rage right now. I haven't read his book though.
And he deserves it. He's passionate, in my opinion. I'm a fan. So
yeah. I haven't read his book, but I've listened to probably 4 or 5 of the podcasts he's been on. So I probably have ingested the book in some sense in that way.
It's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
It's like Proverbs for artists. It's incredible. So
yeah. Rick Rubin and him were like, go touch some grass, drink some water.
Yeah.
Go live your life and then come back and let the art come out of you instead of feeling the pressure to make art.
I guess, how would you define what is inspiring you and what you're most excited about at this moment?
It's funny because sometimes just getting a new instrument or setting up my studio in a different way, even painting a wall, sometimes can be inspiring, which I guess lends to what I was saying just a second ago about sometimes life will inspire the art.
Yeah.
Or even just a good conversation or meeting someone new that's really cool.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the time it's listening to new music that's coming out. Like I'll hear a new track on my release radar or something, and I'm just like, I love this style. How did they capture this? This is the vibe I really resonate with this. I want to make my own version.
Yeah.
And not even necessarily copying it. I feel like I've like mentally jumped over that fear of copying or using splice samples or all that. Cause that's kind of like I think it's kind of like a shared insecurity with people that are newer to producing, of just like, is this really original? Did I make this synth patch from scratch? Like, is this crazy unique more than what does all this stuff combined sound like?
So you're saying people feel sensitive about like, oh, I used a preset on this synth sound, and I need to tweak it so that it's mine.
Or this can't sound like anything remotely that's out already.
That's ever been done.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those phrases that have just kind of been floating around, but everything's a remix. Is something that I that's like one of my favorite sayings about music, at least that I ruminate on. I'm just like, even if this sounds kind of like an artist, it's still a remix of something that people like,
right?
And that I like,
right?
And that makes it a good thing. It doesn't have to make sense to everyone either.
Yeah.
And the part that sucks about it is sometimes you're like, I really like this, but is it commercially super popular? Mm-hmm. Could I live off this? Maybe not, but sometimes you just have to get that out of your system.
But if it moves you,
Right.
I mean, music is a language that we're speaking and understanding from the perception of what we've heard before.
Right.
And when music, like the first time you hear music from a different culture that might be completely outside of what you're used to, it might not sound like music, but the more that you hear it, it resonates more. I have some background around jazz stuff, but I heard this jazz thing the other day that I was like, I thought that they were joking. It was, I mean, I'm just being honest. I would like, it hit me so off. I was like, wait,
is that clip on Instagram that there's 3 guys in a room just doing?
Yes, I didn't want to call them
everything.
Out specifically.
Okay. Is it? Did you send that to me? Did you post it on your story, or did someone sent that to me?
Did I send? I don't know if I sent that to you.
I don't think you did, but either someone sent it to me.
Anyway,
it could have been Chase, I think.
But so it's an interesting. Yes,
I'm down to bash that one. That was,
but I think, but that's so that's the question of like, at what point should people feel guilty in the art that they create?
Right?
Like, and so I'm with you. Like, I don't like it, but it's But if they do, it carries value.
Yeah.
It's unlikely to be the lead track on the next Barbie movie, but
honestly, that's probably a lot of the genre I consume.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a little vanilla sometimes. I just love a good old pop tune, like even all the Sabrina Carpenter stuff that's viral right now. And there's not saying that everything viral I enjoy, but there's certain stuff that I'm like, yeah, that deserves to be viral. Yeah, like that's actually genius, and I don't know how they did this. That's magical.
That's cool. What are you feeling is evading your skill sets the most right now in audio production?
Ooh, that's a great question. I feel like the audio production isn't really, it's not the technical side of it more than it's the creative muscle that I seem to develop, and also the ear for, something I've been kind of getting a grasp on for myself is that it's less, and I guess people have said it before, but it's way less about the equipment you're using or the method more than just your ear knowing what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Because once you know what you need to hear out of a snare drum, for example,
right,
to sound good in a mix or for a specific genre, getting there isn't really the problem. It's just knowing, I need to take this out. It needs this. So on and so forth.
How much of that is in post or in mic placement and those things for you?
For me, it's mainly in post. It's the post side that there's still new methods to processing stuff. Again, I'm getting more into triggers now because I've been more focused on just getting a really good sound out of something from the source, which is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm all for efficiency and not spending 5 hours.
So you mean like using, at this point in time, Trigger 2 or something
yeah,
like that?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much what everyone's using.
Yeah.
Trigger 2.
It's amazing.
Yeah. But also just being versatile, and like we were talking about metal drums, they're all heavily triggered for the most part.
Right.
Just purely because the way that how quickly they're playing patterns. There's not really a great way to capture really tight transient from stuff most of the time. So
right.
I want to be able to produce a metal record and have it sound right.
To be fair, I think what I was struggling with the samples that we were working with is it sounded too like triggered. It sounded too digital for me. Like thinking about the physics. I mean, this is maybe me just being wrong, and I'm definitely ignorant around metal, especially deathcore stuff, right?
Sure.
So
me both.
Yeah. So as they're playing really, really quickly on the bass drum, I'm like, technically that head's gonna like be a little bit more flexed as they start going into it more and more and more and more and more. Like the tone's gonna just like feel tighter. Like you know, I'm just thinking about it. Like it just doesn't. I'm not hearing it. It's not making me believe it yet.
Right.
You know? And it's like I want it to, and like I haven't played yet with those plug in the MIDI, which we could play with today too. But like plugging the MIDI into the good drum stuff, but the samples I heard, I was like, okay, that sounded more like what I'm interested in. I don't know.
Well, so you're explaining what I meant by like your ear.
Yeah.
You know what a real drum sounds like. So when you hear a sample just repeating the same velocity 5 times in a row, your instinct says, "Oh, that's not how it's supposed to sound."
Right. And like I think there's two sides of it too. It's like on one end I want the technical abilities of the artists that are playing them to have or programming, whatever, right?
Sure.
For that to very much be human and sound human. But then the truth is that I mean in pop and in metal and in rap and whatever, there a lot of that, the art and the human's touch goes into the actual production side too, to make it, I don't know. So I'm trying to figure out how to keep the honesty without stripping it away by cleaning all of this stuff up over here. I don't know, and I don't know for sure. I'm about to go into it and figure it out. On this, on these tracks, but
what do you mean by like honesty? Do you think it's like deceitful to be doing a certain thing with it, or just honest to what the person was performing?
So in the way that if you play drums, and you play drums very well.
Oh, thanks.
It sounds freaking great, and it sounds honest, and it sounds like you. Sure. You could take every one of those transient hits and plug them in and quantize them on a grid at the same level. And it's not going to sound the same. It's not going to have the same honesty. Okay. It's not going to feel. I'm not going to feel the human behind it, So I'm definitely a fan of putting stuff on the grid, but I'm happy with a little bit of flexibility there, especially with honest performances, So
the character to it, you want to keep the character.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Character of the player.
Yeah, precisely.
100%.
Yeah. Or we talked about, working in Logic compared to Ableton. I'm sure there's a way to do it in Ableton, but the humanized function in Logic on MIDI, did you ever play with that?
Oh, I have before. Yeah, is that where it randomizes the velocities of everything?
Or the timing. You can vary what you want. And so you can just and you can do like a little bit at a time and just listen back and you're like, okay, that sounds more human. It's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a way in Ableton as well without clicking and dragging each note, but I'm interested in that. And I mean, going into AI music being a thing that's coming out, it's doing a good job of sounding pretty freaking human already too.
Right.
So it's not like this is going to be the magic, but I definitely think people are going to be more flexible and hungry for not just killer production ideas and things. I think it's going to be a lot about honesty, I guess, the rawness of the performance and the truth of the performer. Not that AI won't be able to also make those sounds,
but uniqueness or someone's sound print on something, how they play it.
Exactly.
I
don't know. I'm theorizing
for sure.
As we all are, but
I think you're kind of explaining with developing my ear, that's kind of, I'm like, how can I figure out the taste that I want to put into this? Yeah. Rather than it being right or wrong, or
giving credence to your taste being valuable because it's worth it. It's you,
Right. I guess you could say being authentic to the character.
Yeah.
Your character.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. By giving, not being something I struggled still, I'm sure I still struggle with it a lot, but I have struggled a lot with is the feeling guilty for being myself in the art side of it, wanting to sound more like that pop album or whatever when I'm not that, even though I enjoy it. That's the thing. I enjoy it, but that's not necessarily what I'm going to go out and create for me. And so, but the most moving tracks for me, and I mean, some of the biggest songs in the history of the world have been songs that just were completely left field,
Right.
And it doesn't need to be the biggest songs in the world by any means, but things that really pushed limits like crazy,
Yeah.
Bohemian Rhapsody, I don't know.
Yeah. It's break the rules. How long is that song again? It's
I don't know. I don't remember.
Obnoxious, right?
I think I don't know. What are you afraid of these days?
Yeah. I think the constant, the pressure of it is making a living off of it, not having to I guess my fear is having to lock into a 9 to 5 job where I don't have energy anymore to be creative as much as I'd like to be. So
how does a 9 to 5 job take more energy than being on tour for 28 days running those things?
Well,
I don't disagree, by the way.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at touring is, even if I would agree that it usually is more of a toll than a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Which depends on the gig completely too. The way I look at touring, at least, is that I'm around music and I'm getting better at music, just being around musicians and artists, and being a part of the process of mixing it, or mixing people's ears, or so on and so forth. So I wouldn't put that in the 9 to 5 category as I loathe that. I more loathe just being completely disconnected from music and not having the time or the energy to put more time into being creative. So
I wonder. I think when you say that, it makes me wonder where fatigue comes from,
right?
Because it's not physical output or mental output alone. I think for me, it is a being forced, or feeling like I'm being forced to engage in something that's not helping move my life forward in ways that are functional, other than payment, But doing that over and over and over and over for a long time, I've never succeeded at that personally,
right?
Which is why I'm an entrepreneur.
No, that's exactly how I couldn't put it any better. It's just, I don't want to be doing something completely separated just for money.
Right.
Sure. There's definitely moments where, you have to sell your soul per se for a couple days to make some money, and there's no shame in that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
If you were in a position where you had no need to make any more money ever again, what would feed your soul in those moments the most?
Yeah. I think just picturing myself being able to produce music by myself or with people that I enjoy producing with. If I could just do that for a year and not have to worry about paying bills or just all the stuff that's tied along to that. That's in my head, at least. I haven't been able to try that yet.
Of course. Well, but I guess it's another question is like, so what, let's pretend like it's longer than a year and it's like the rest of your life. I mean, I'm assuming it's the same answer, but like, what are the fruits of that? Like, if you're pitching a dream out there, like what are the real end results from doing that?
Sure. Having a creative project that is for its own sake, that's an experience or a feeling or an emotion that's complete. Even a whole experience that's around a film or something, or multiple films or a series, which I feel like movies are kind of, which that's a whole topic we could get into, and you know more about film than I do, but I feel like movies are the kind of the pinnacle of art in a lot of ways, because it combines so many things together. And actually that's something I'd love to score a film at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe that would be something I would tag along to producing or composing.
I mean, just to be fair, I probably know more about how to hit that red button on the camera than you know, but not necessarily about cinema. I'm not
sure.
I'm ironically ignorant in like the movie world.
Right.
So even though
that's a whole different way to look at it, right?
I've lived in the commercial short film side and and like ads basically, but they're like cinematic, short 2 to 3 minute films. But I haven't, and also don't have the desire to work on the cinema side of movies at all. Like, it's like not even close to inspiring or exciting to me.
Right. Which that part doesn't excite me as much either. But probably more the film scoring.
But the music, I'm 100% with you. And that's definitely a direction I'm intending to go.
Okay.
For sure.
Amazing.
Intending meaning I don't know, but I want to ask the questions. I have a friend who works a lot more closely to that world, and the technical accuracy of those people is insane. So I would not be good at driving that boat either. I would have to be like somehow valued
the accuracy
as the creative
regarding
like the way that they work on their I don't even know, like the way that they're connecting the scenes on the back end systems. Like they've got these like assistants and producers that work with the movie side. I mean, that's the way the movie industry is too. It's like, it's just way more complex than what I'm used to dealing with, and a lot more diligent, and let me say probably too many forms for me to be the right person to be running it.
Sure.
I would need to be working as part of a team, and again, like for some reason have a voice that's valued as a creative on that team, you know.
Sure.
So it would be it's a long camp, and I don't probably expect me to be the person in charge of all of that ever, but maybe. I mean,
maybe
who knows,
not in charge, but a part of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, but I do love. For me, it is the music. It's the emotion side of it, not the technical end of it. I think is probably the thing.
Yeah.
Even though I'm happy to go down technical stuff as we.
We're both techies. But
yeah.
Actually, having you just say that I probably wouldn't want to be involved in a lot of the part of filmmaking either.
Oh, right.
More than just linking up the music to the visual theme,
right,
story going on.
Yeah. A lot of it is I live in. I mean, like this podcast or anything that I do, it's all documentary style. It's conversations. I don't work off of scripts. I don't work off storyboards. I can't. I don't enjoy that.
Right.
It seems lame to me, even though other people execute it really well. Every time I'm like, I don't want to show up to a conversation and read a script back and forth. And so I don't want the film to feel like that either. So again, like the humanity, the honesty. Yeah. It feels like faked. Of course, like a great movie doesn't feel faked. It feels like a movie.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of film scores motivate you the most?
Oh, that's easy. The Tron Legacy soundtrack is my favorite.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's one of the very few playlists I have on my Spotify.
Really?
Yep. Uh-huh.
I feel that's not unique to me. A lot of people love that.
That and Social Network is another one.
I haven't heard that one, so you have to.
That's great. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I think.
Okay.
I love stuff that they do together.
Okay. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
But the concept of like a house duo producer artist, just out of the blue scoring a film, and out came a very, very unique film score, in my opinion. I just love that. It's Daft Punk's probably one of my top musical influences because of that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So.
What's funny is I don't know anything about the humans behind it, but I love their sound.
Yeah, they're very mysterious, unfortunately. But
a single
it's two dudes.
Okay.
I believe they're French.
Okay.
And roughly, I know that they were kind of pioneers as far as house music when they first started releasing stuff.
Okay.
And they kind of pushed a whole genre, and then also broke a lot of rules in the genre in a great way.
Yeah.
Even with their last album. And then they're still releasing instrumental versions of stuff, which is, I think, is amazing.
That's awesome.
So I'm very inspired by their intentionality with breaking rules with songs and music and film scores. And
can you give some examples of what rules you know that they've broken, or that make you go, yeah, you shouldn't have done that, but it was perfect?
Right. Well, I listened to, I don't remember who it was, but it was a commentator, like a music commentator, if that's the term. But he broke down what Daft Punk did on their Random Access Memories album. If you're familiar, that's the one that had Get Lucky on it and all those big hits. And I didn't realize it after listening to this album for years, but what they did is they had a bunch of musicians come together in a studio and just play loops. And they would just record 30 minutes of them playing a certain pattern a couple different ways.
Cool.
And then later in the process, they chopped that up and arranged it into a song.
Okay.
But kind of circling back to what we said earlier about having your own ear, your own characteristics. That's basically, they looked for musicians that had characteristics they liked and in a way set them loose in a studio.
And that's why it sounds sampled, because they literally
But they were sampling someone in real time.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
For musicians that they liked. So, which I haven't heard of anybody else doing.
Yeah.
In a way, they kind of, instead of using Splice or something, they, well, in a much more expensive way, they hired, really prestigious players to play them a bunch of samples, and then they later on the back end stitch it together how they'd like. And
that's awesome.
So it's very organic and sampled at the same time.
What's your next thing you're kind of scared to jump into in the audio tech world, but you want to?
Oh, that I'm scared to do. Shoot.
Things maybe scared is the wrong word, but like, you haven't pulled the trigger because you're like, that would be fun, but I don't want to. I'm not ready, or I don't know, but like,
yeah, man, I'm typically pretty fearless as far as trying new things like that. I don't know what a good answer. I haven't thought of it that way. I mean, I bring it back to producing, like, at the stage where I'm at, taking on a full song intimidates me a bit, just because I haven't traditionally ripped out a bunch of songs in a full length and like, here's a song that you can put out.
Right.
It's been more instrumentals or concepts.
Right.
Or even just like a beat.
Yeah. Just the drum side. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just playing drums, which I kind of, in a way, it is a producer thing to do, but I guess what intimidates me is that I'm more of a drummer than like a musician in other senses, like piano, guitar. So I don't think about chords and melodies like some musicians would, because I'm just mentally, I don't have chords and chord structures and scales floating around in my head. It's more purely just how it sounds.
Okay.
And in a way, I'm like, maybe that's a cool thing, because I'm going to produce it in a different way, or think of it in a different way, or less mathematical about it in a way, because I'm not a musician in that sense.
Yep.
But also part of me wants to be a jazz pianist so I can just play it without thinking. So
sure. Well, first off, I can show you some basic ideas if you want to.
One of my
the way that music works, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And then of course it's like the point is to break all those rules, but yeah.
Yeah. One of my favorite, along with Daft Punk, one of my favorite artists, Haywire. He's like an EDM producer, but he's a like classically trained jazz pianist, but he turns it into EDM.
Okay. So
it's very soulful, and a lot of really complex chords and things I probably don't even have a grasp on. I'm just like, I hear it, I'm like, oh, that's really crazy.
Totally.
But he does that along with, bass music, dubstep, house kind of stuff.
That's cool.
It's one of my favorite combos, which has some commonality to Daft Punk, 'cause again, they bring musicians in and then kind of turn it into pop or EDM or whatever. But,
yeah. What excites you? Well, this is a question I've been asking people, because I'm actually curious about this process, and I'm learning a lot of the answers. How are you a fan to other people? Like, what does that mean to be a fan? Like the way...
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Well, I've kind of thought of that even the past couple of days. I'm like, I'm not a great fan. Because some people... I feel like with my friends, I'm a lot more intentional about, shouting them out or being encouraging, or even on social media, like, check out my friend did something awesome.
Yeah.
But I'm not that guy that goes out and buys a bunch of merch usually, or will pay hundreds of dollars to go to a show in person. Right. I don't know if that's selfish of me, but I more just enjoy consuming it on a daily basis, you know.
But for example, like you knew at least enough about Daft Punk to like find out that you think it's two French guys, and then how they went through the so you're like, you're studying things occasionally, or I don't know if that's just it happened across you, or you went and sought that out, or I don't know.
That took me like 10 years to do that.
Okay.
And that's been something I've been pushing myself to do semi recently, is actually go out and nerd out about some of the details of what makes an artist, or how they explain their process.
Right.
Like John Mayer. I love John Mayer. Mm-hmm. I've like intentionally looked up like John Mayer podcasts.
Yeah.
I want to inject some of that, the way he thinks, into the way I look at music.
Yeah.
Rick Rubin's kind of a wild card because I haven't listened to a lot of things that he's actually produced.
Right.
So
yeah.
At the same time, I don't want to, well, I say this, ironically, but most of the time I don't look into artists that I don't listen to very often, because I'm like, this is the reason I like this, and I want to be influenced by this. Rick Rubin's kind of an outlier just because he's very popular, and he's very interesting to listen to,
and he's so diverse, and actually this band Fatal Laceration that came in to record deathcore stuff. I mean, at first I was like, I'm not interested in being what I said was like religious, quote unquote, but like to like fit what deathcore is. I was like, but they sent me one of Slipknot's albums that Rick Rubin did.
Right.
And I was like, okay, like if we're willing to be risky, not that I'm a Rick Rubin at all, but I just appreciate his approach to asking like going through the process of like, what's better? What can we make? How can we make this different or better, or not just different to be different, but like the A/B process? I don't know. Like I was like, I'm open to trying this. Like let's do this.
As in, you took some of the practices he's laid out and you applied it.
I was inspired by the fact that the band was open to not trying to fit some mark. And they were open to it, but the results,
they wanted to stay in a genre, but they were willing to dance around that genre.
Quote unquote, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like they're open to creative insight on how it, like what directions it can go. And then listening to Rick Rubin's results he got on Slipknot stuff, I was like, okay, like that. Right. So I was inspired by the output of what Rick Rubin was able to do, but then knowing that the band was open to it. My point is more that, going backwards, Rick Rubin's an incredibly diverse producer and can kind of play in all camps of the world, and that's my goal would be the same thing, to be like,
yeah, me too.
As long as I like the music, the style, like as long as I can like it, if I can get it to there, then I'm good.
Right.
So, yeah.
Though you could probably have some interesting results trying to make something you don't enjoy.
It's true.
It's something true. I've tried.
Because
again, I don't know if I get that dopamine rush from trying to do hard things and make it enjoyable.
I know. I have thought about that. Like if here's the thing. I know we talked about this. I'm not a country fan, but I think there's a specific type of country that tends to be kind of the top 40 stuff that is triggering to me, but I'm impressed with the music, the musicians. I'm impressed with the lyrics, but there's something about the music that's not my favorite. I think it has to do with childhood training of not liking country. My dad didn't like country either. So, and I've tried to unpack it, but a lot of Christian music's the same way to me. It's like it just sounds kind of vanilla and boring, and it sounds formulaic but I know that's not true. So you're totally right. Like
sometimes that's just ignorance or just not spending enough time listening to it.
For sure.
At least from my experience.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
not to say that there's a lot of Christian tunes that are just so boring.
Yeah. And truthfully, like, I mean, metal stuff is not my main listening thing either. Yeah. But I can appreciate the visceral response I get when I hear like the extreme vocals that show up on tracks from, like Linkin Park or I don't know, whatever. Maybe that's a bad example, but but like when they come in, you're like, what? It's huge, it's crazy. So I'm like, I know I've responded emotionally that way. It's like, so how do we get there? So it's fun, but
well, I've gotten bigger on. I like the idea of creative boundaries, and genres are just a great way to do that.
That's cool
because it's like, how can I make this metal record sound like metal but enjoyable to me, or it evokes a response for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, not metal to folk. That's a hard transition.
Yeah,
No,
that would be jarring.
Yeah, exactly.
Which have you heard of Spirit Box by chance? They're kind of low key famous. Like there's people that are more into the scene, but they've been kind of a taste breaker because it can be really heavy, like really heavy metal.
Yeah,
not like death metal or something, but not even hardcore. But they tie that in with a lot of melodic parts of the song.
Cool.
And it's relatively production heavy. Like there's a lot of synths and mood stuff go in the background. So like half of me is like, ugh, like this is way heavier than I usually listen to. And then the other half's like, wow, I love this melody. And I love how syncopated it is at the same time.
Yeah.
So they've been an artist that have really inspired me recently too.
That's awesome.
To the point of wanting to tighten up my double kick chops.
Oh, yeah.
Be able to play the songs. And it makes you feel like a kid again, just trying to learn a new genre like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But
I'm bad. I'm just like, I'm bad at being a fan. Might not be the healthiest way to put that, but I'm not a well-rehearsed fan. Like I'm not a person that is practiced at being a fan in the same way I'm not a person that's practiced at understanding even what genres are.
Yeah.
Like obviously I know the
than
difference
just like,
between,
do I enjoy it or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we think the same way that way.
Okay. Yeah. And I like even to fit in the box of like, for example, to fit in the box of country, I would be like, what does that even mean? Like, I don't even know. Like, at what point does it become folk or does it become pop? You know, like, I don't know where that spectrum is and why. And I also don't enjoy the idea. Like, I don't know. I'm like I feel like stuck. It's like the 95 to me, like would make me feel like a trapped animal, you know? Same.
Thing?
Well, sorry. That's a reference back to earlier. It was like if I was at a 9 to 5 job, like,
9 to 5. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And if I was like stuck in having to produce a specific type of genre, it would make me feel like a trapped animal. However, the limitations, and having creative limitations is super critical and super important. So yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to say I don't understand genres.
Yeah, I'm just like you said, I'm just not a great fan as far as digging into things. But I found even going against my intuition that way or my tendencies, I can actually learn a lot from learning about someone's even personal life or what influenced them. Yeah. Or taking the time to listen to someone have a commentary on how an album was made. Yeah. And what they were thinking. And it's not the most enjoyable listen to me personally. Like I'd rather be listening to like a podcast or just the music itself. But I'm learning to nerd out in ways that aren't as like easy of a tendency for me to like, not my tendency to do, but actually it's very productive. It's more like work, but educating myself intentionally by being a fan. And I think in a way that's kind of curating my sound. Yeah, very intentionally. Yeah.
What does success look like for you in the current part of your journey? Not the eventual thing, but like when you're like every day, like when you have a successful day, what does that mean?
Successful to me would ultimately being paid well to do what I love doing, which is music. So if I'm touching even audio, even things around music, I love that. I love doing that. So if I'm able to pay my bills, it's kind of what Taylor said on his podcast as well. And I think it's just a shared musician thing.
Yeah.
As long as if I'm able to live and have the freedom to be creative off of it and live off it at the same time, that's a win for me. Yeah.
And what about, what would you tell a younger version of yourself, I guess? Or a producer, a young artist or whatever. Like what life advice can you give to other people, you know?
Yeah. Again, kind of everything we were talking about, lean into what makes your sound really interesting, even if it's not what all your friends listen to. Because I grew up in the church, playing the church. Still am in the church. I love it. But if all you're doing is hanging around musicians that play Bethel all the time and you love dubstep, like whether you know it or not, or even depending no matter on how like aware of it you are going to be influenced by that. And if you sit down and make a really sick dubstep tune and you don't have anyone to send it to, in a way you're just like, okay, well, I'm making something useless, you know?
Yeah.
And looking back, and I'm like, if I would have put all my energy into just making stuff that I really vibe to and like just put it on the internet or something, I feel like that would have opened some doors for me that I wish I would have had now.
Yep.
And, you know, it's just a journey. But I would say to someone younger or even to myself is just lean into what makes your sound unique more than focusing on being versatile. Because
Cool.
I think it's premature to, as a musician, to be like, I need to be a master and know every genre and know how to play every lick, more than leaning into what people are going to want to call you for. Like, are they going to call you for a back pocket? Are they going to, I'm thinking drummer terms.
Yeah.
Because that's something I've done even longer than producing. But, or do people like the flair you add on this? Or do they just like your feel? That's kind of hard to describe. Like, how can you lean into that?
Yeah.
And still be excellent and able to play genres that you want to play. But,
be authentic to yourself.
yeah. Yeah. And like unashamedly focus on your taste.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with other people you think might gain value from it. My name is Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act.